by the German Academic Exchange Service and funded by the Federal Ministry of Education and Research, and I will be today's moderator. My colleague Inji Nafi will be with me and assist me throughout this session. And we are very excited and so grateful for everyone being part of today's session. Today we are hosting the 4th episode of our event series Meet Your Future You. And our research shows that one of the most effective ways to share information is through individuals who have already navigated this journey and can provide first-hand insights into both the advantages and challenges from an international perspective. Today we focus on global health, one very important topic, and this format will continue to evolve based on your preferences, and we plan to organize more region-focused online events and topic-focused online events. So therefore, your feedback at the end of today's session will be highly valuable. And we are very fortunate to have one experienced scholar who has successfully established herself in Germany today here with us. But before we get to meet her and to ensure a smooth and interactive session, I'd like to familiarize you with the key features of Microsoft Teams webinars. So here's a brief overview. And so if you have questions during the presentation, please do not use the raise hand feature. Please only use this feature at the end or during our Q&A session. And for questions that you would like to address during the Q&A session, please use the Q&A box. And the chat box is only used to be used for technical issues. And reactions can be used at any time. As mentioned and agreed upon during the registration progress, we are recording the event, and the recording will be accessible on our website to all participants after the session. So once again, thank you for participating, and I am very much looking forward to an interesting session. The time is short, so let's make the best out of it. A brief summary of our agenda. It's not quite long, but the most important part is Laura's presentation, and we'll start with her. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Professor Dr. Na Liu. She received her PhD in physics from the University of Stuttgart in Germany, and then worked as a postdoctoral fellow at the University of California, Berkeley, and later as a Texas Instruments visiting professor at Rice University. And prior to her appointment as a full professor at the Kirchhoff Institute for Physics at the University of Heidelberg, she worked as an independent group leader at the Max Planck Institute for Intelligent Systems. In 2020, she joined the University of Stuttgart, where she became the director of the Second Physics Institute. So Laura, the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. So I will share my screen to start.
We can see everything perfectly, Laura. You can go ahead.
Okay, but for some reason I don't see you anymore. All right. So you see my full screen, is that right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, perfect. So just briefly introduce myself, just very shortly. My name is Na Liu. I'm from the Second Physics Institute. Also, I work at the Max Planck Institute for Solid State Research, also in Stuttgart. So first of all, I really would like to thank Ms. Hadmacher for the invitation. I was very excited. Especially, I would like to thank the platform of research in Germany for giving me this opportunity to talk to the young international students. All right, I have the outline of my talk today. So there are several points I would like to go through with you. I will first start to address the challenges and opportunities in global health and especially the medicine research in Germany. And it will be followed up by the very short introduction to the focus and work of my research work. And probably the most interesting part would be really my experience as an international researcher in Germany. And I would also comment on the research environment and funding opportunities that you can think of in Germany, just in general. And then in the end, I will also talk about why interdisciplinary collaboration in Germany is very important and what could be the challenges for international researchers working in Germany. All right. So I found this very nice figure from the article that I have listed below. So if we take a look at this graph, you know, in the world, billions of people are at risk of infectious disease, either directly transmitted or environmentally mediated. So in figures A and B, it lists the common transmission pathways that fall along a gradient of direct and environmental transmission. So then A and B represent human-to-human transmission. So here we define directly transmitted diseases such as HIV or COVID-19 as those spread majorly through person-to-person contacts. For example, through short distance airborne or droplet spread or vertical transmission. So below in figures C and D, they represent environmental transmission through, for example, water, food, waste, animals, or insects. So in fact, some environmental mediated disease have involved human-to-human spread as demonstrated by COVID-19 from animal reservoirs to spread among people. You know, COVID-19 pandemic reminded us that health is indeed a global concern. So then if we take a look at the world map across many parts of the world, we continue to see disparities in access to care and different rates of disability adjusted to life years and health inequalities and increasing pressure from environmental and climate changes. So at the same time, antimicrobial resistance and emerging infectious diseases also pose very serious transnational threats. And so why Germany is very important and playing a very crucial role. So Germany has been strengthening its position in global health in many ways, for example, both politically and scientifically. It has supported international organizations like World Health Organization and G7, and has also built an excellent research ecosystem that includes public health institutes, universities, and dedicated funding for international collaboration. So that I will really address in detail later in my talk. I want to just give a very concrete example, the crucial role that Germany has played for the global health. So as we know, during the COVID-19 pandemic, a concrete example of Germany's contribution to global health is its central role in the development of the first approved mRNA COVID-19 vaccine. And as we know, the biotech, in collaboration with Pfizer, they developed a vaccine that was approved for the very emergency case in late 2020. So that was really a great groundbreaking moment in medicine science. So this achievement was not only about the cutting edge science, which was very important, but also about Germany's in general, very supportive research ecosystem. This included early stage public funding support, also close collaboration with authorities and a culture of scientific excellence and especially international collaboration. And this case also shows how strong investment in science, infrastructure, and translational research can really lead to global impact. So, you know, it's again a reminder that innovation doesn't really happen in isolation. So then one important opportunity in Germany from my viewpoint is really the focus on interdisciplinary research. So global health problems cannot be solved by medicine alone. In recent years, we have been seeing really substantial support for innovative directions. For instance, vaccine, digital health, One Health. So One Health means that this is the picture by looking at the links between human, animal, and environmental health. So we know that the challenges are quite significant, but I believe the infrastructure and openness in Germany really create opportunities for international researchers to contribute very meaningfully. So then after this kind of short comments on global health, I want to introduce a little bit about the focus and work in my research group. First of all, where are we? So I'm from University of Stuttgart. So Stuttgart is a kind of a very vibrant city in southwest Germany. So over here, so down there you'll see relatively where the sausage is. And then it is the home for major institutions like the University of Stuttgart. We also have Max Planck Institutes, Fraunhofer Institutes in Stuttgart, and very famous companies such as Mercedes-Benz, as well as Bosch. Yeah. So then so this is this is the picture of University of Stuttgart that I found from internet, and the building you see from this picture, it happens to just be our physics building. So I am from the second floor, second physics institute, but we are located at the fifth floor. And University of Stuttgart was founded back in 1829, and we have 10 faculties in total. And we also are a member of TU9, so that is an incorporated society of the largest and most notable German institutes of technology. And this is the group of mine. We are from the Second Physics Institute, as I have told you. So my group is very international. So it consists of many international researchers from Europe, from Asia, for instance, and very particularly, I would like to say the group members in my group, we have really interdisciplinary backgrounds across physics, biology, chemistry, and engineering. So quite interdisciplinary and international. So then what we do, just in general, we do DNA nanotechnology. So in this screen, you see a DNA molecule. So everyone knows DNA molecule. Maybe you are more familiar with the fact that DNA is a genetic material. Yeah, so we have A, T, C, and G bases, A and T, they join each other, C and G, they join each other by base pairing. But other than using DNA as a construction material, we also take advantage of DNA, which is a construction. So other than being the genetic material, we also take advantage that DNA is also a construction material. Because if you take a look at this picture again, so you find that DNA actually has very, very defined structure. The diameter is 2 nanometers and the pitch is around 3.4 nanometers. Therefore, we can utilize DNA actually as a building block to make materials with very unique programmability and addressability. So here I show you a video. This is the technique that which is really our favorite. This is called DNA origami. I will explain to you this video in a bit, but I want to give the credit to the inventor. So origami technique was invented by Paul Rosamond. So back in 2006, so he was a researcher in Caltech in States. So the technique can be explained as follows. So here, if we have a kind of a loop-like scaffold DNA, yeah, you'll see in the middle of this loop-like DNA molecule single-stranded. And then if we add shorter strands, so hundreds of them into the solution, and then they can find their way to bend the scaffold DNA through base pairing, DNA hybridization, and then they can fold the scaffold DNA into arbitrary shapes. In this particular video, you see this is a rectangle. You could also make the design to make a triangle or even three-dimensional structures as you wish. And this gives a lot of design freedom with, as I said, very good addressability, unique programmability, and high resolution spatial-wise on the order of nanometers. So then over the years, what we have done is we utilize the unique properties of DNA structures first to make dynamic building blocks to mimic the dynamic motions of motor proteins. For example, ATP synthesis, kinesin, myosin, which could make rotation, walking, and sliding. So then after the construction of the dynamic building blocks, then we started to do optical sensing by pairing up with our knowledge on nano-optics. And these optical sensors can integrate the sensitivity of optical elements as well as the specificity of the DNA molecules. So then after that, after we really have accumulated a lot of know-how and expertise, then we started to organize these DNA building blocks into high-order optical architectures, which could perform multi-state behavior as well as multi-motion. In very recent years, we start to utilize these DNA building blocks to make synthetic cells. And because of the time limit today, I just want to show you just one of the very latest examples from my group. But first of all, I want to address the questions of why synthetic cells are interesting in the first place. So Richard Feynman, the founder or the father of nanotechnology, said, "What I cannot create, I do not understand." So it means that the ultimate solution to understanding cells and cellular behavior, or even more profoundly, to answer what defines life, is to build a cell from scratch by ourselves. So then we do this through learning, imitating, and eventually we would like to understand and ultimately create synthetic cells and cell-like organisms. So this is really a very long way to go. Then, as I have announced, I want to show you one of the projects that we have been carried out. So this one is more particularly about the shape of our cell, how to control the shape of our cell and how to control the drug delivery. And we know that the cell membrane is the physical boundary of a cell, but it is much more than that. So cell membrane also plays a key role in many biological functions. For instance, cell adhesion, communication, and very importantly, disease implication. For example, cancer cells, they often have very irregular shapes and sizes. Therefore, the cell membrane and the cell shape, they are of great importance to investigate. So then here, in this slide, you see this is a very recent work from my postdoc, Sisi. So she has really introduced a new concept. She utilized reconfigurable DNA origami structures to interface with synthetic cells, and they could work as the cell remodular to induce reversible morphology changes of the cell as well as the gatekeeper for large cargo transport, which is fully reversible. So without going into too much technical details, so I would like to comment the significance of the hybrid system, meaning DNA nanostructures and the synthetic cells, as well as what would be the future work, what would be the perspective for, in general, the biomedical applications. So from this work, in principle, we found that the DNA nanostructures, which are reconfigurable, could be functionalized with diverse motifs to accurately recognize and programmably puncture diseased cells or control the release of synthetic cell enclosed drugs. And in particularly, in our work, we show that these synthetic channels can be gated. And it means that it would also make it possible for transporting very large bioactive substances beyond the capability of natural protein pores. And we also envision that our work could stimulate new solutions and new thoughts to unmet bottleneck problems in sensing or delivering of large protein complexes, drug delivery of personalized medicine, as well as very fundamentally artificial cell-cell networks and communication. So to understand what is happening from the very, very, very fundamental and basic viewpoint. All right, so after this short introduction about the focus and work in my group, I want to tell you more a little bit, more about my journey as an international researcher, especially the different funding opportunities and the research environment you can expect in Germany. And I hope my comments and my tips could be useful for you if you are interested in coming to Germany to do research here. So here I show you this this map. I started, maybe I found my laser pointer from here. So I grew up in China, and then this is in Shenyang, and then I went to Jilin, so right here, kind of northern China. I did my bachelor study in physics. So then I went to Hong Kong for my master degree, also in physics. So at that point, after graduation, I was thinking where to go next. So then I decided to come to Europe. I was a PhD student at University of Stuttgart to do my PhD degree in physics for around 4 years. So then at that step, it was again the decision where to go next. So I wanted to just go further and see more of the world. Then I went to the States. I became a postdoc at UC Berkeley. So then I got the opportunity to become a visiting professor in Houston, Rice University. So after those 3 years and a half, again, it was the moment for me to decide where to go next. So then thanks to the very generous support from Alexander from Humboldt Foundation, I got the Sofia Kowalewska Award to start my research group at Max Planck for Intelligent Systems in Stuttgart. And then after around two years and a half, I started to apply for positions, professorships in Germany, because in general, Max Planck institutes, they can host group leaders, but the permanent positions are very, very few. Then I started to look around. Then I got a call from University of Heidelberg. Then I got the full professorship at the Kirchhoff Institute for Physics. So then after a while, just because of family reasons, I looked for a position again. In 2020, I joined University of Stuttgart, and I became the director of the second physics institute, where I am now. So having really studied and worked across three very different academic cultures, I think that was very, very helpful for me. And all the experiences have taught me to be very adaptable and open-minded, and especially very collaborative. It also shaped the way I approach scientific questions, always looking at them from multiple angles. So then, as I told you, I also I hope this would be helpful for you to know Germany better, especially in terms of the research organizations, as well as the funding opportunities that you could look for. So in Germany, we have different institution types. So universities, so this is quite general. At university, I think worldwide, they have very similar concept. At universities, we do both education and research, and we offer programs with a full spectrum, from bachelor to master to PhD. And then in Germany, we also have universities of applied sciences, the so-called Hochschulen. And this kind of institution type is more practice-oriented. Yeah, so and they are strongly tied to industry. So other than universities, we also have very, very strong other societies or associations. I believe most of you know Max Planck Society. So Max Planck Society focus on basic science. And then that is really the place where you can find many Nobel Prize winners. And if you want to pursue fundamental discoveries, then this is the place to go. We also have a Fraunhofer Society, and again, this is more applied and working closely with companies to develop market-ready technologies. And we also have a Helmholtz Association. So they run Germany's biggest research infrastructure with very large-scale projects, for instance, in climate science, in space. And they really think of a big collaborative science. So last but not least, we also have Leibniz Association, which links the basic research to real-world challenges. So for me, I know university and Max Planck systems better because I have worked at these two places before or even now. But in any case, all of the associations, all the models that I have listed, they are very, very international. So then for funding opportunities, I have made some tables for you. I think in the end, our program will also post my tables online so that if you don't remember the details, you could always come back and check the different opportunities later. So national-wise, there are very kind of strong public funding agencies. So one is called DFG, German Research Foundation. DFG, they support really cutting-edge research from the bottom up. So you can apply with your ideas directly, for example, through individual projects. And then there is Federal Ministry of Education and Research, so BMBF. This is the agency which focuses more on national priorities and encourages especially collaboration with industry. So other than that, we also have so-called private foundations. For instance, Volkswagen Foundation. So it is known for funding really very bold, brave interdisciplinary research. So especially at the early stage. Other than that, we also have Carl Zeiss or Vector foundations they focus more on the STEM fields and are great for young researchers and applied science. So they often support institutions with very specific calls. So you can once in a while just check their homepage. They list the open calls and the current calls with particularly targeted groups and project aims. So I often actually check their homepages as well and just don't miss the opportunities. So then there are also foundations like Bosch, then a lot of information. Again, you can find from their websites. And you could also have those special fellowships or scholarships. For instance, DAD, German Academic Exchange Service, and another one would be Alexander from Humboldt Foundation. They provide very generous support to international students and scholars coming to Germany. So as I said, when I came back from the States to Germany, then I applied the funding from Alexander from Humboldt Foundation. Then we also have, other than the German system that you can think of, you could also look at kind of more broadly the European or international funding. We have Horizon Europe or Marie Curie actions, and also on top of it, ERC, so-called European Research Council grants, and they really provide a variety, a full spectrum of scholarships or fundings that you can think of. So ERC is more prestigious, and you have to go through, I think, 2 rounds of selections. But anyway, so all these opportunities are ahead, and you should really keep an eye on that and just to find the best one which could fit you. All right. So then the last 2 points I would like to quickly comment because of the time. Why interdisciplinary collaboration is very important in Germany. So first, the one thing I have come to value really deeply in Germany is how strongly the collaboration interdisciplinary collaboration and work are supported. So for example, as I have told you, DFG and BMBF, they often support research that brings together medicine, data science, engineering, and public health. And one unique feature of research funding in Germany also includes other initiatives. So these are relatively much bigger initiatives. So when, for example, especially when you are at relatively senior level, for example, in the future, if you, after your graduation, then you become group leaders or junior professors or full professors, then you can also think of joining such bigger initiatives. For instance, one is called Collaborative Research Centers or CRCs. This is a program supported really very strongly to do large long-term research networks by DFG. So often bring together scientists from different fields to work on a central theme over many, many years. And then there is another one called Clusters of Excellence. And this is even a larger scale and very, very interdisciplinary collaborations. And these clusters really kind of unite experts, for instance, from biology, engineering, physics, and data science, or any disciplinaries that you can think of to solve very, very ambitious research challenges. So then I was also asked to say something about the possible challenges for international researchers. I think as an international researcher, Germany really offers a very welcoming research environment. That is my feeling. But of course, there are some challenges that we could imagine. The first thing is the language barrier. In general, the labs and research labs they function in English, but the daily communication, for instance, you go to the banks, doctors, or supermarkets, often requires a very basic German. And I would say for younger students like you, then it is really worth investing in the language early when you are younger and much easier to learn the language. And the second point is the bureaucracy or administration in general. For instance, as international researchers, we need to get visas and then do our address registration, the health insurance. So everything really involves a lot of paperwork. And but you could always get help from your colleagues or your peers who have done that before. Then other than that, social integration could also take time, especially you want to find some apartment, then you really need to look around, especially finding the housing is quite difficult in large cities. But don't forget that you can always ask, and there are really very kind German colleagues. They are eager to offer the help. Just look around and then don't be shy to ask and to ask help from people who are willing to help. And there are also great resources in general you can get from international offices from the universities or Max Planck institutes. So the challenges for me, so this is the one of the last slide I want to show you. So in fact, I did not have a lot of big challenges, probably because I was quite lucky. But then I would say one of my biggest challenges is not in a lab. It's really at meals. So in China, we have hot meals 3 times a day. But in Germany, especially for dinner, it is often a cold sandwich and salad. So it is not friendly really to my Chinese stomach. You know, my daughter was born and raised in Germany, so she is totally used to the German food. When we often sit at the same table and we really eat completely different meals. So what is more, she always finishes having her dinner with the cold bread in 10 minutes when I was still kind of preparing my hot soup. But I would say actually I have come to appreciate this because the extra time, for example, cooking or eating slowly also gives me a moment to relax from my work. So especially after intense teaching or meetings, this has become a very small but very helpful buffer for my day. All right. So then this is already almost the last slide of my talk. Uh, my my advice is that despite these challenges, so as an international researcher and as a young student in the past, I think the support systems in Germany in general are very strong, and you need to remember that you are not alone. So overcoming these challenges is part of the growth if you think from this way, and all of these will make your life journey very rewarding and meaningful. So now this is the group photo of my lab again. So I really would like to thank all my students. And then you see we have many international students. And of course, over the years, a lot of supports from different funding agencies so that we could do interesting work and brought me to this event so that I could talk to you. Yes, so with that, I would like to thank you so much for the attention. And again, thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura, for your insightful presentation. We really appreciated the way you guided us, not only through your work in physics, but also gave us a vivid impression of what it's like to be part of a research group. And you also helped us to better understand the German research landscape, especially the role of non-university research institutions, and introduced us to some key players in the field. And of course, your personal insights into life and research in Stuttgart brought everything even closer to our audience. So thank you very much. And for
Thank
those who
you.
have, thank you. For those who have questions, this is your time now. You can still feel free to type your questions in the chat box or in the Q&A box. I will just give you 1 or 2 minutes, and you can feel free. And can you see my screen now?
It's still gray for
Okay.
some reason, but I can share the screen, and maybe I can ask 2 questions that I that I wrote down, because I really found the your insights, Laura, very, very interesting. And first of all, how's your German level?
My
Yours?
German level?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think so I think my daughter's German level is much better than me now. I cannot comment on that.
Yes.
Yes.
No, but I was just wondering, because you mentioned that, and this is for sure a big topic, especially for young researchers who are thinking or planning how would it be. So I found this reality check also very nice for people to know. Of course, within the research field, when you're doing things, it's a little bit different at universities and research institutions. But as soon as you go to the outside world, I think it also depends on where you are, in which city. The bigger the city, the more international it sometimes is. And here it can also differ, if you need more German, or if English could be enough sometimes. But yes, this is actually a little bit besides the point. But at the very end, you also showed your team, and you said you're working very interdisciplinary and internationally. And I think it would be very interesting to know how has been this experience, and what are the great things about it, and the challenges at the same time, being in such an international and diverse team.
Mhm. So I think international aspect and interdisciplinary aspect are both very important for doing research in Germany. And then I would say it's very interesting to work with people or students from different countries because of their different backgrounds. So I can come because I know, for example, Chinese students and German students better. I could comment on, for example, especially the students from these 2 countries. So Chinese students, they work very hard and they are very motivated. So then they have often very kind of straightforward thinking. So they want to do great research. So in general, I think if I give them very clear topics to start, and then I could expect kind of a very clear way for them to develop. So I would say for German students, I think because of the different education background, I found German students are very skilled for doing experiments, and their thinking is kind of more structured and organized. And this is something I really appreciate. But I do think if I compare the students from different countries and different backgrounds, then I found that for German students, they probably more want to ask questions. So why I have to do this, and what this could be. So they have more questions and a lot of sharings along the way. But I'm very happy that I have students from um, many countries, so that it sometimes I think is really very interesting to see students how they develop. For example, if I compare the first day when one of the students started, and then at the graduation day, how he or she has developed. So this is really a kind of very interesting kind of process to join. Yes.
Yes, I think this insight that not only working in Germany, but also this exposure within such an international group is very enriching from that perspective. Thank you very much for this insight. It's always very interesting to know how you see it and how the experience has
Mhm.
been. But I think there is a question also in the chat. Clarissa, and then maybe I can keep my next
Yeah.
question for after.
Yeah, yeah, sure. There is actually a question which is yeah, very individual, but it's directed to you. If there are any, did you see the question, Laura? So somebody is writing, thank you, Professor, for the presentation. I would like to know any postdoc position at your lab. Maybe you want to, maybe, I think it's a
Yes.
great compliment.
Yes, thank you so much for the interest. So we do have positions in the labs, in my lab. So I have, in fact, two positions. So one is from University of Stuttgart, and meanwhile, I'm also affiliated with Max Planck for solid state research. So then we do have postdoc positions. So often how it goes is the follows. So please send me your CV and then your kind of letter of interest or intent, and then we could have an appointment, often just through online, like the online meeting, for example, what we are doing now, and then we can have a kind of a small conversation, and then if we are both happy with each other, I think we find a good match, and then of course you are very welcome to join my lab.
I think that is a very unique opportunity and a great way to connect directly. So thank you for sharing that opportunity. I think that's great because, I mean, you know it yourself, but it's sometimes so hard to get into contact with a person and get a direct feedback. So this is very great that you mentioned this. There is another question. Hi Laura, thank you for your guidance. Can you please tell me what could be the language level required for PhD students, whether we need English proficiency certificates or German certification, and what would be the level required?
Um, on the PhD level, you don't need any German certificate, but you need to know English quite well. I think there is the standard for the English level. Either you have the TOEFL test, or I think this is the basic one.
Or
And
IELTS usually.
yes, I think that is rare, at least from University of Stuttgart. Normally, we take we take a look at the grade from TOEFL test, but this could vary. But certainly, there is no requirement for the German language
Mm-hmm.
certificate. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So then, of course, you need to be able to communicate with your colleagues, your professors in English. For instance, in PhD program, other than research, one has to really finish or complement some courses, and then you need to get credit from these courses. And in Germany, this is also, as when I was a student, then I found that there was really a difference between the Chinese education system and German education system. So in Germany, some major courses, the exams, they are in the format of oral exams, not written ones. And this is, I think personally, I like it because this is a lot of answers, a lot of questions, maybe you don't really have the definite answers. The professors want to see how you think
Mm-hmm.
and how you can explain the physics in detail using your own language, then you need at least a good or sufficient English skill to communicate with your professors in English during the exams, and of course, in the future, the discussions on scientific questions. I would say the conclusion is German language certificate is not needed, but your English level should be sufficient for communication. And especially you need to, in the end, write up your thesis. Yeah, and then writing skill, presentation skill, um, communication skill, all of them are of great significance.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think bottom line, English is very important, but I mean this is a global thing, and of course it's also good to speak some German when it comes to your daily life, because you not only sit in your lab or talk to your international colleagues, but you also have a life outside. But it's not mandatory to be able to study at a German university or to conduct research at a German university.
Mhm.
I had another question because you transitioned from the US as well.
Mhm.
And I would be very interested because you have an idea of two very important research locations, and how did you feel about this transition, and how is the US maybe different to Germany, and
Mhm.
all your maybe a second part of the question, all your input was very nice and very good and beneficial for you. But I would also be interested in some challenges, maybe because Germany does have some downsides or challenging aspects as well. So maybe you want to elaborate a bit on that as well.
Yes, so thank you very much for the question. So I think I can answer this question in several fold. So first of all, it was quite different for me because I did my PhD in Stuttgart in Germany, and then I went to the States, and then I came back. So therefore, I knew the system already quite well because of my PhD study. I did not really have some cultural shock, for example, when I came back because I was used to the system. Therefore, in my case, it was not difficult for me for the transition. But then if you want me to comment on the kind of especially the characteristics of German system compared to other systems, for example, the States or Chinese system, I would say the research culture in Germany are very structured and focused. And I would say the thing I like most is the work-life balance. So people tend to be really enjoy the life and meanwhile enjoying working. So I think this is very important for not only for me and also for students, international students in general. So work-life balance in Germany is pretty good, I would say. Other than that, I found the unique thing in Germany is that people tend to be very organized, and meetings always start on time and very punctual. And often this is not the case in other countries. So then there is also um, I think other than that, compared to other countries, there is less pressure for constant output, but the quality and the depth research are much more valued in Germany. So let me put it in this way. For instance, when we think about the graduations of PhD students, in different groups, we have different standards. For instance, in some group, there is no kind of strict requirement how many papers you need to publish before your graduation. But as long as your research depth and quality are reached, then you are able to graduate. Therefore, I think this gives the students really the freedom and also the capacity to develop them very freely. But in other countries, I think there is higher pressure for this really how many papers you have to do before your graduation. So in general, I think that the quality and the depth of research are very or much more important in Germany. So this is, of course, my very, very personal view. Yes.
But of course, a very interesting view because that was actually my second question because
I see.
you had the experience in both, and sometimes we're being asked what are the differences, what are the unique points in comparing US and Germany, especially that in the US, of course, with the language barrier, it gets a little bit easier, but therefore
Mhm.
there are other challenges and what would make Germany be more special or unique when it comes to doing research. And apparently, it was a good thing because you came back to Germany after your
Yes.
stay. I would just assume. um, yes, that's why that was very insightful to see it from that perspective again.
Mhm. So another
Definitely.
thing I have missed, so if I still have time, I want to say compared to other countries, the stability of funding from organizations, for example, DFG or BMBF for fundamental research, this is also very important. So we see latest news all over the world right now. You know, the funding stability is of great importance for researchers and especially for fundamental research, like what I'm doing now. And another advantage is that so we are based in Europe. So, for example, I have a lot of collaborations with my colleagues around the European area, of course, also from the States. We also have special calls from funding agencies to support the collaborations between Germany, Israel, Germany, Italy, or Germany, uh, the US. So a lot of opportunities. So the funding stability is the key, I would say, from my opinion, especially in nowadays. Yes.
Yeah, thanks for
Understandable.
mentioning that very critical point we're now at in history somehow. Yeah, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we're at the end of our little Q&A session now. Yeah, but thank you so much for the questions and your answers, Laura. We just are going to share, as you can see, the contact details of you. And also the website, which is very nice with videos and some more information about the research group. So I can just recommend looking that website up. You can also feel free to take a picture maybe. And now we just come to our final part. You can scan this QR code you can see for a little survey. It just takes 1 or 2 minutes. And you can also find it in the chat. Thank you, Inji. And yeah, this feedback is very helpful for us. So it would be great if you could just fill this survey out for us.
Mhm.
And if you still have more questions, you can, of course, still use the chat and raise some questions. We're still here for a few minutes. So go ahead.
Yeah. So from my side, also, again, thank you so much for the opportunity. So I wish I could have had such platform or this kind of this kind of conference meeting format when I was younger. And
Yeah.
then so back then, of course, the kind of the internet resources were not so easy to get. But now I think the students, they really have the opportunity and the environment to know more resources, and that will be very helpful for those younger students. So I also appreciate this opportunity to really introduce my group to the international researchers who are willing to come to Germany. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. I mean, of course, a special thank you to you for your rich presentation. I think we really learned a lot, and it was very detailed and very helpful. As you said, I think many professors would have wished for something like this in their earlier career stages. Yeah, so I think that's great. And thank you for the participation, dear audience. Thank you for your feedback. Yeah, I think we will just stay here for a bit.
Okay.
A few more
So
instances.
so I can be offline now?
you can go offline and enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, enjoy the sunshine. Okay,
Thank you, Laura.
Thank
Greetings
see
from
you.
you.
Bonn.
Yeah, bye
Bye.
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 On the bottom, you can also find our social media channels and also our newsletter, the website as well, because Research in Germany also provides many information. It's very rich when it comes to all informations, which just got mentioned by Laura as well. So feel free to also scan those QR codes. And there will be plenty of other events in the upcoming months. So you can just stay tuned and wait for more. They're going to come every month, actually, from now on.
Thank you also from my side, and we wish you a beautiful evening and exactly stay tuned. We will be also focusing on some regions in the coming sessions and yes, and showing you, presenting to you a couple of new or a couple of different institutions who offer opportunities for international PhDs and postdocs. So yes, stay tuned and goodbye from my side.